Hi everybody, this is Caroline Sotheby and welcome to Up, Down, and Around Town. Okay, this is another session I'll say, hey, gotta sit down and find out what's going to happen because I got with me two guys from the Poets and Playwrights and they're going to give us an idea of what actually is happening there now because your group started way back in the 1980s. And okay, you want to first start then? When did you actually start?
Well, I joined the group in 2016, so I've only been in the group for 8 years.
Okay,
That's the year I moved to Wyandotte,
okay,
and it's been very active since in this group.
okay. That helps out, that being active, because sometimes people just join and never come back, you know? And what about you now?
Well, my memory's not that great, but I've been going, been with the group about 18 years.
Okay,
Yes.
and now you're considered the, what, moderator, right?
I'm the co-leader.
Co-leader?
When I brought George on, I figured we should share that because there is a lot of responsibility to that, and George brings a lot to the table. He's very much organized, and any group needs an organizer. And George has been a big help to me and the group, and I appreciate George very much.
How about that? See, you got your acclaim. Anyway, we had some time before we came on the show, and I did show you some Women of Wyandotte history information. I heard an awful lot. The founders, of course, was Gwen Funston. She was a teacher. She moved out of the state, though, in 2003, and that's when what's name took over.
Mano D'Angelo.
Okay. And Louise Heck. Of course, there's another name that's on one of the articles, but I think we'll go by Rabbi, right? R-A-B-Y-B-I, and she was a librarian. She died early, though. She died in 1995. But those two were actually the ones that got the group going.
Yes.
All right. Do you happen to know where it was? Was it at was it at City Hall at that time? Possibly.
I would say it probably was at City Hall.
Okay.
That was before my time. There aren't that many members left that were part of that.
Yeah.
There are a few, but not many left. And I don't know for sure where they were meeting, but that would be my guess, City Hall.
Okay. What basically was the purpose of getting people together outside of, well, at one time they used to critique, but you said that's not being done recently because people sort of like, just enjoy what I have to offer you, and I guess if you want to talk to me on the side, that type of attitude right now.
Yes, it's not. Poets have the opportunity when they read at our meetings, and by the way, our meetings are the first Tuesday of every month at Bacon Library here in Wyandotte at 6 p.m.
Okay.
Downriver Poets and Playwrights. A poet has the right to, or if they want to do it, pass out copies of their poem to everyone in the room. Then they read their poem aloud. And if people want to, they can write comments around on the page and hand it back. Now that's about the level of critique. Everything else is so supportive and positive. If someone says, do you think that was a proper sonnet or something or other, somebody else might answer, one of the more experienced people or somebody who knows forms. But we don't really, we accept just about everything. We've talked a little bit about having a critique group, but that would be that would be somebody who wants their poem critiqued. But a lot of times a poet will ask the group what do they think of the poem,
Okay.
If they don't hand, after the pandemic, we didn't hand anything out for a long time after the pandemic because of
Right.
paper. But if they want, if they ask some kind of question, they get an answer usually, but it's really positive reinforcement.
Okay. How many people are right now in the group, though? They probably started out maybe in the 20s, and how many do you have now are active?
On the rolls, we have over 25. But at any particular meeting, there's probably 8 to 12 that show up. And
Okay.
they all don't show up the same ones, you know.
So you know.
So it's a very open organization. People come when they can, and that we get new people come by every once in a while to come check us out, and new people are always welcome. It is a group, we believe everyone has a voice, everyone has something special to say, and we like to give everybody an opportunity to share that voice and share their ideas, and we encourage one another.
Well, through the years, has there been a drastic change in ideas? I mean, or is it more or less even keel that?
Over the years, I think we've clung to what the original starters wanted, that we would promote poetry, we would encourage poetry, and we would grow in our poetry. And I believe we are doing that. Although we may not critique as stringently as they might have when they first started, and that both of them were teachers and they had degrees in English. We have teachers in our group, and we share from our own knowledge and our understanding what we know to be poetry, what works for us, what may work for others, and we're very supportive of others' writings.
Now, are you more or less in the poetry line or the prose?
Well, probably I do a little bit prose, mostly poetry. There's 2 or 3 poets regulars with us. One of them is a novelist, and she'll share little parts of her novels at our meetings.
Really?
There's
Yeah.
other poets that are mostly prose writers. There's people who strictly write rhyming poetry and follow forms. And there's people who sort of use free verse and other forms like that.
Wow.
So it's not, there's no,
diverse, yeah.
it's very diverse. There's, as far as style of poetry, we rarely, the only time we'll bring up a form if somebody says, this is a sonnet, and then they give you a limerick.
Oh, okay.
Exaggeration there, but I mean, there's really no rules, and you would keep it very welcoming.
Okay. You want to make a comment? You were like hesitant at first.
Well, I just wanted to say that we call ourselves the Downward Poets and Playwrights. You don't have to be a poet to be in the group. With Louise Heck-Raby being a playwright herself, she influenced that part of the group when the group started. But there haven't been that many playwrights that have come and joined us. But we would still welcome people that want interested in playwriting in our group. We've had a few, but all the different disciplines of writing, we welcome. So it's not just poetry, and when you talk about poetry, it's not rhyming poetry specifically. There is a place for rhyming poetry, but there's so many other forms of poetry that don't include rhyme. And I, for one, like to share different forms of poetry, because different forms meet different opportunities for expression. One poem may not be right, one form may not be right for what the poet wants to say. So there are other opportunities to share that whatever they have to say. And poetry, all poetry is personal expression. And in that sense, I believe we are all poets.
Hopefully, but we're just like an everyday person going out the streets and all the time. Yeah.
We
But-
get people who perhaps have reached their middle ages and have some time, or it could, we have some younger ones too, but
Yeah.
they go back and drag up their childhood poetry,
Well,
and that's fine.
That's a
and
base,
they might
yeah. Yes.
it might get them interested, and they hear about our group. We've had 3 or 4 new members in the last 2 months. They
Really?
joined us, and they brought in some old poetry they wrote a long time ago. And sometimes they will bring in something he wrote as a kid and maybe edit it, or just they don't have to edit it. But yeah, so people reach back and they say, "Oh, poetry! I remember I used to do that in high school." Or I did it when, like, we have some topical things like pandemic poetry,
okay.
or 9/11 poetry, or death of a family person, deep loss poetry, that gets them to writing, and then they show up.
Yeah. Well, to them, it probably wasn't poetry. They were expressing their feelings and their thoughts on paper at that time. But going back to it later, you say, oh, well, it could have. Or, oh, just add this and add this. And that's what you're realizing now for somebody who's got the time. They probably retired and say, hey, I got to do something. So that's one way of getting introduced to it again, right?
Yes,
right.
that's correct.
Okay. You did bring some books, though, right? That you were going to let us know.
We can just hold up a few, and then these are some books that our poets have written, and Pat Barnes has been a guest here. One of those books is hers. I have a book here. Here's one from
We'll
our.
go a little slower. Okay. Why Did I Remain in the Garden? That was yours, right?
That's my book from.
What's in that one, though?
Well, poems that I wrote, and sort of started with the theme of I do a lot of gardening, bird watching, gardening, nature things. So I had quite a lot in that, and I published that in 2019.
Okay.
Here's a book from one of our newer poets, Lori Novak. She has 7 books out now.
Really?
That-
Yes, I brought one of her poem books too, Before Time's Desire by Lori Novak. This is one of her books. Like George says, she has 7. She thinks she started. I don't. Did she have any out before she joined the group?
I don't think so. I think she's written
She
about.
just could
4
just start cranking them out, and boy, she has a lot to say.
Really?
And
Yeah?
that's very, very good. We always encourage our writers, if they want to publish their works, to get out there and try it. We have the different resources we can point them to. Here's another book by Gil Sains. He's written a number of books. He's been in our group for a long time. And of course, Pat Barnes.
Okay.
This is a poem book, a very good book that she has written. She is so wonderful in her writing. She has a creative spirit. She gets into feelings and relationships, and when she talks about some people in the poetry, through her poetry, you can identify with them because she brings out their features. She brings out what they are very much like. And she has a sense of humor, a wonderful sense of humor, and it comes through her poetry also. So Pat Barnes is really special to our group, and she is one of the poets that's going to be honored in this month at the Poetry Society of Michigan at the fall meeting.
Wow.
She's going to be named the honorary chancellor of the group.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, she's going to be the current one because there are others still living that are still part of the group, but she's going to be the current chancellor. And they award this to the poet and person that has supported the Poetry Society of Michigan throughout the years, that have good writing abilities, and they've been acknowledged for what they write. and we are real happy that she is
Yeah.
being acknowledged and getting that kind of acclaim from the State Society. And we're going to
close to home.
support her. We're taking a carpool from our group, as many that we can get to go to that meeting to help honor Pat. And she's also going, during that meeting, she's going to be giving a workshop, a poetry workshop
Really?
that we participate in when we go to those meetings.
How many groups are there in Michigan anyway?
There are about maybe 10 groups
10? Yeah.
scattered around the state.
But originally it started in downriver?
No.
And then, no?
No. The Poetry Society of Michigan, I'm not sure where it started from, but it wasn't downriver.
Okay.
I
all
know
right.
that. Maybe Lansing. I'm going to have to look into that history. I'm glad you brought that up. You always catch me on something, but good for you. I need to know that.
You need to know that.
I need to know
Okay.
that, and I will know that next time.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Some other things that, well, she is receiving that now
Yes.
this year. Who were the other ones that formerly had awards before?
Okay, for that position, there's Jack Riddle, which is an excellent poet on the other side of the state near Holland. He was a professor of poetry and English, and he
Yeah.
taught many students how to write poetry. There is another one, Eric Torgelson, which is also a college professor that taught English, taught poetry, and has written a lot of poetry himself. And from Ann Arbor, there is
Lawrence O'Donnell.
Larry Thomas.
Larry Tom.
Larry Thomas is a very excellent poet, and he'd been a member of the group for a long time, and he is either in his late 90s or he should
Really?
be he should be close to 100.
Wow.
What a wonderful guy, and his poetry has been around a long time, and he is a very good poet.
You know-
I don't know what else I could say about him. He's a great guy.
Okay. And they shared, so that helped out.
Yes.
I want to say something, as long as we have time, of the different places you can see what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is right here today. Thank you.
Yes.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Another one is on Channel 15 here.
Mm-hmm.
There's two airings per day from our group. One is called Poetry from the Dot, and it has our poets reading their poetry, and some of it's filmed here.
Mm-hmm.
There's one that we've started recently called Behind the Poetry Lines, and it's where some of us have a couple of guest poet of our group, and we talk about what's behind the lines, what caused them to write the poem, what kind of things hit them that they wanted to write the poem, or
That's
how,
interesting, too.
yeah.
Find out,
So
yeah.
what generated the idea for that poem? Then we have a YouTube channel. It's part of the free national YouTube. It's called Downriver Poets and Playwrights, Michigan. And all of these videotapes and things I'm talking about are also visible on that channel for anybody who wants to, sort of like your show is on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that is known to people.
Okay.
And we have members that aren't in Wyandotte and that don't have the cable station. They're able to go to the YouTube station and see what's been filmed here in Wyandotte.
Yeah.
And we appreciate that being available to us.
I think for all of us, because there are a lot of people that come on as guests, and you probably know, that are not from Wyandotte alone. And they'll say, well, when can I see this? Or how can I see it? So all this information is good for them, yeah. And
Right.
anything else that you might want to
Well,
tell
I
those
wanted,
people.
you asked, if we have time, I wanted to talk just a little bit about the, what's changed. You mentioned what's
Yeah.
changing in poetry and is poetry growing. And I've got some notes here, but it is growing rapidly. In 2017, there were only about 18 million people reading poetry.
Yeah.
According to the closest I can look it up, it's more like 30 million, so it's gone up almost double.
Okay.
Everybody, a lot of people are very aware of the sort of the youth, people of color poetry, like Amanda Gorman, who was the young poet laureate that read the poetry at the Biden
Yeah.
Inauguration.
inauguration.
Yes.
There's more and more what they call performance poetry. Now, there's some versions of that are rap poetry or slam poetry. It's not all negative, those, but it's a growing thing. Our own national organization, National Federation of State Poetry Societies, we're a member of that.
Okay.
They have a $10,000 contest for the best performance poetry
Really?
every year.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the quality of, and that's nationwide.
Yeah.
But they put it on, you can find it on YouTube and all that. But that's how much performance poetry. Now, not all of performance poetry is rap, and not all of rap stuff is said in performance. But there is a group, there are a lot of poets who feel like they want to say their poems out loud and practice it, and sometimes it's not even, it's memorized, it's not
Yeah.
reading from the paper. And we have some poets in our own group who love to stand up and sort of, shall I say, ham it up. They'll
Yeah.
bring life to their poetry. And in that case, it sort of fits. But they still read poems about grandma's pie and about nasty teachers and about lost
Do
loves
you
and
actually get those nasty teachers?
things like that in
Really?
any topic. Yeah. Just sometimes they're very funny. We have several poets that have he mentioned Pat Barnes. You find yourself laughing when they're reading, but we also have serious. So anyway, the poetry around the world, and the biggest change has been, especially since the pandemic, when people stopped going to meetings, is that social media, Zoom, etc., became a big venue, and it didn't die after the pandemic. It's still going very strong across
Is it?
the
Yeah.
whole world, actually. I mean, people visit some of our websites that are from other countries.
So that helps out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you get very many, though, that get an idea how they think by listening to what they're writing, the poems or any poetry or whatever? Do you get an exchange of maybe different ideas that they have there compared to what's in America? Or not?
Yeah, I
You do?
think so. One of our poets that been on we also have a Zoom. The Zoom is an online thing, and it's called Blue Water Zoom. It's once a month. I host it. Dennis is part of it, and we have people come onto your screen,
Yeah.
in Zoom, and from England, from Malaysia,
Really?
from all the states. We had
Australia.
Australia, that's right.
Yeah.
We have quite a few members from the West Coast.
Well,
And then
that's-
we have a guest bard, a guest speaker once in a while who gets to read several poems as opposed to reading one or two.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I think when you listen to other poets, you don't have to steal their stuff, but you absorb parts of it.
Yeah.
It's not plagiarism; it's just absorption. So that people, for example, who read poetry a lot, I'm sure it gets back in through their pens to their paper.
Well, yeah, just like anything else, what you get comfortable with, and a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and all of a sudden you realize it's not just your writing, it's your ideas that you got from somebody
Inspired
else.
by somebody else. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So for somebody that say, hey, I might try to see what the program's all about. Okay, your meetings are at the library,
Macon Memorial Library.
and second
the first Tuesday of every month
First Tuesday. Okay.
at 6 p.m. Yes.
Okay.
Perhaps I ought to explain a little bit about the hierarchy of the different groups.
Okay.
The Downriver Poets and Playwrights is a local writing group here.
Okay.
We are affiliated with the Poetry Society of Michigan. They have a lot of satellite groups throughout the state, and we combine together to be the Poetry Society of Michigan. But the Poetry Society of Michigan is affiliated with the National Federation of State Poetry Societies, which is the umbrella for all the poetry societies in the different states. And we get to associate with them in national conventions. We meet poets from all over the country, and we get share in their resources. They publish Strophes, which is a national newsletter about the different poetry options and things that are going on in the nation. So we have the national, we have the state organization, we have our local organization, and we benefit by all three of these. It's not just a local isolated group. We have a lot of contacts and a lot of different poets to talk with.
Okay. When you mention local, are you just talking like downriver?
Downriver, yes,
Okay.
our local group
Okay.
in Wyandotte.
All right.
But we serve all the communities, it's just not Wyandotte. We have members all over.
Yeah, well,
we
that's
have
why-
we have a member come from Canton
Okay.
on a regular basis.
Well, that's what I mean. We're still
Yes.
in this
Yeah.
little.
Yeah, but she chose to associate with us in Wyandotte.
Okay. All right. I don't know if we covered everything. Anything else that you'd like to talk about? In a minute?
Since we talked about Pat Barnes, I was wondering if I could read one of her poems.
Yeah. I think we have enough time for that.
Okay.
Otherwise, we can go into closing.
This isn't from her book Cup of Home. This is from an anthology from the Poetry Society of Michigan. What I'm going to read to you, the title is The Red Garter. This was written by Pat Barnes. The Red Garter was a banjo band bar downtown. I wasn't supposed to go there, but my friends went, and I was weak and happy and 21. Oh, the joy of succumbing to temptation. Oh, the exhilaration of naughtiness. It is difficult to maintain a good girl persona, difficult and damned dull. My grandmother's moral counsel, so firmly embedded, took a lot of shushing. Finally, I triumphed in the suffocation of virtue and set out on my own wicked way. We drank beer, we sang, we threw peanut shells on the floor. We laughed so hard, we peed, and I know I was alive. A tainted reputation was a small price to pay. Grandma would never know. I could go to hell on my own. End of poem, a poem by
Pat.
Barnes.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you. And hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you next time on Up, Down, and Around Town.